Live from Callaloo Studios in New York City, you are listening to Let's Take It Offline with your host, Kishshana Palmer.
Hey, Fab Crew. You're listening to Let's Take This Offline, the podcast for everyday leaders. Part inspiration, part sit down, let's have a conversation. Here's where you'll find the real deal about living well and leading well. I'm Kishshana Palmer, your host and resident leadership whiz. And now, let's take this offline. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. I am so excited to have with me in the studio Joy Pittman, known as the Olivia Pope of HR. Y'all, you know that means she just gets it done. Joy is a well-known and highly sought-after human resources strategist and management expert. As the founder of JVP Legacy, Joy leans into her 15 years of experience to create, coordinate, and manage foundational systems to help catapult her clients to levels of exponential growth. Prior to starting JVP, Joy served in the for-profit and not-for-profit sectors as an HR leader across industries including social services, healthcare, education, real estate, management, and corporate finance. Y'all know she's my kind of girl. Joy holds a master's degree in human resource management, a bachelor's degree in economics. She holds her certifications and designations of having an SPHR, a SHRM SCP, and y'all is a 2022 JD candidate at Rutgers Law School in Newark, New Jersey. Let's welcome Joy to the show. All right, friends, we are back with another awesome episode, and I could not be more excited to have with me in the studio my friend, famously known as the Olivia Pope of HR. Joy, welcome, my friend, to the show. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And I know other people say it, but I really mean it when I say it. I always am grateful and appreciative when people share their time and their audiences with me. So I'm so happy to be here today. I'm ready to get into this tea or
come on,
chat, whatever we call it today, right?
First of all, Jay, can I just say, why does the language change every minute? I can't keep up. Every time my daughter gives me a new word, I'm like, sis, can't we just use hype and fly? I just don't.
Oh no, I'm still using for most days, I'm still using 90s.
Correct.
Stuff is still dope.
That's it.
It's still fresh and great.
That's it. Because actually was the best decade ever. I don't care what anybody says. That's when I was, was it?
Essentially, no argument.
No argument there.
Lie?
I mean, here we are. The music, the fashion's a little iffy, but it was correct. One thing I would say about growing up in the 90s for me, I was in high school in the mid 90s going into college, and I just remember that there was just not this pressure to be more than you were. You just had to be fly. No matter what part of the country you were from, whatever your regional style of dress. I'm a New Yorker. And so here, it was all about your acrylic nails, if you could afford it, matching your outfit for the 2 weeks. And I was about that matchy life, okay? So every outfit for 14 days matched. Clear.
All of them. And you literally thought about the outfits before you even got your nails done because you did not need to have a color that you had to go back and get changed.
Correct.
Because they charged you for this color change.
Correct.
Yeah, we wasn't here for it.
Wasn't here for that. And if you had to fly airbrush, if you had to know the person who really could get an airbrush of life, right? So you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm talking about.
So listen, we have time. So, we appreciate these things a little bit differently.
Well, differently. And so here's what they didn't teach us in the 90s, that when we went into the workplace after college, that things would switch up, that maybe we'd have to leave some of that stuff at home. Why they didn't teach us that, Joy? I don't understand.
Here's the thing, right?
Tell me.
And I think this is I think they were trying to, but they weren't telling us what it was. Right? So my mother did not love. So you got to think, like, my mom did not enjoy the nails being so long or the colors, or she didn't enjoy it, but it came
True.
across as mom stuff. Mom just being picky about mom stuff. No one explained to us that all of the individuality that we were told to foster, I guess, through high school,
Right.
and then the self that we were supposed to find in college was not going to be appropriate for the corporate space.
At
No one
all.
told us that part.
At all.
So you said explore it, find it, and then package it away
Put it right in your pocket and tuck it.
because they're not here for it.
They're not here for
They're
it.
not here for it.
And in
Yeah.
fact, the message that I got was, you're going to work to work. You're not there to make friends. You're there to do your job.
Mhm.
And so I came out of undergrad, went into grad school, came out of grad school, fresh, minty MBA, thinking I'm fly, right? I'm 21 years old, about to turn 22 with a fresh to death MBA. I'm thinking I'm the thing, right? Because I'm like, yeah, I got mine early. Done. Also, experience? No. Okay. And so having to get an
Right.
education in all of the things that you did not learn in your program, at least not in my school, one of which is part of going to get a graduate degree is for the networks that you will need in order to be able
Right.
to move through your career fluidly, or at least with fewer obstacles. Also wasn't taught in any class. I'm just saying. Why didn't anybody say anything?
You wanted too much. You wanted more than they was
I
willing to
wanted
give,
more.
essentially.
Okay. So
You
I
essentially
wanted
wanted more than they was ready to give you. Yeah. Yeah.
So what do you think? When was the first time that you realized, like, oh, I'm gonna have to leave this part of my flyness at the house?
So I'm gonna be absolutely honest with you, and I think it's just important to call this out. So I am a light complected African American woman with air quotes that you can't see good hair and facial features that are not heavy. I'm still air quoting.
Yep.
So I am generally, or was generally in most instances, the tokenable Black person. Before I understood what that was, I was a tokenable Black person. I was the acceptable Black person. And so I actually did not run into a lot of the issues of not being my whole self, I think, until I actually started thinking more about how I wanted to show up. Because I think I fell into the normalization of college. So I went to college in the city. So there was a city vibe. And then I started working. So I think I very early took on this was corporate, or this is what it meant to be a professional, as opposed to me realizing that it was really whiteness. Like, it wasn't professionalness. It was that we defined professionalness by white standards. Right. And it was whiteness. So I actually realized the first time I decided, so let's think about certain things. Like, I had a perm, but when I was younger, I'm tender-headed, so I didn't really wear braids. There were certain things that were considered ethnic and cultural that I wasn't actually engaging in until I actually got older. So I ran into some things at the point where I think in my early 20s when I decided to go natural, mainly because I didn't like that my hair didn't have any body after a perm. I started noticing that I would perm my hair so I had length, but it would just be flat. And I actually was liking my hair more when my perm had grown out than when it was fresh. So essentially I was like, I'm going to go natural. So I did a big chop before it was popular. I cut my hair off before we had a million products for it. And so I went through first people going through the drama of you cut off your hair. And we won't unpack on this call what hair means, even for other Black people. Like, if you have long hair and cut it, it's almost like you did something to the whole community. Some of the stuff that we still have our minds wrapped up in, right? And so it wasn't until I started wearing my hair natural, and the people who actually initially made me feel conscious about it were Black people.
Yep.
Essentially, maybe white people thought it, but Black
nobody
people
saying nothing to your face about that. Oh no.
Right.
Oh no. The most I had a manager the first time I walked into the office. I ran a part of an organization where I ran the New York office, and the CEO was in a different office on the other side of the country. And I decided to finally take out the weave I had, because we weren't calling it units at that time. We didn't get fancy with the lexicon. at that time. And I came in the office and my team was like, wait a minute, what lady is this? Hold on. And then the CEO had flew in for a meeting that week. And I was stressed because I was like, oh my gosh, how's my hair going to show up when I go meet with donors? What people are going to say, blah, blah, blah. And my man looked at me and was like, oh, your hair's cool. That's different. All right, ready to go? And I was like, what? Meanwhile, at the house, between my mama, two of my best friends, 3 friends, the dude I was dating at the time. What you do with your hair? What you planning to do?
We're not even gonna unpack that. We're not
gonna do that today. No, we not. Hey, we're gonna need 2 hours, 2 cocktails, and people gonna have to just pull up a blanket. Okay, then they're gonna need a nap. And so, like you, I remember coming into work, and this is my confession, that I reveled in being an only for a really long time. And I couldn't even articulate what that was because I started my career, at a position early enough that I didn't even realize how I had been tokenized. And so I thought I was doing big stuff.
And it made you feel like this meant that you had accomplished this great feat that others were not worthy of having attained.
Heck yeah.
And so we wore tokenization with a badge of honor. And I think so even in those moments, then it was about maintaining your token position. And so I never forget, I was actually looking to change jobs. I had a pretty decent progression. And I was like, you know what? I've been in this particular organization for 7 years. The turnover in the organization was really low. People stayed there for a long time. But what was happening was I wanted to learn more, and I was capped at a level that I was like, I'm not going to sit here for 10 years, right? And so I started looking. And I remember going to search firms. This is my first encounter with executive searching firms. And I went in they asked you to come in for an interview. And I went in for the interview. And the person basically told me, you present well, you have a really strong resume, we love everything, but how are you going to wear your hair to the interview? That's what the person told me. And it was a Black woman.
Yes.
And I said, in my head, this is what I would be going outside like. This was all of it. I didn't forget to do my hair and get dressed. Like, this is what we was going to do. And she advised me to wear my hair back. And I think what is absolutely funny is that even when I caught myself getting free, I still would interview with my hair either pulled back in a bun or a unit or something that covered whatever my hair was going to look like. And then I would slowly shock them. And I would just slowly come in, maybe one day with the bun out so you could see that it was a natural puff. And then maybe it would be out. Or, at that point, by that time I started doing braids and different things. But I remember literally at moments having these seasons where my hair would go, if I was looking for a job, everybody would know, are you interviewing? Because my hair would go back
to that,
almost
to the edge snatching.
When the folks stopped smoking weed so they could pass drug tests.
That's it.
I was doing that with my look. And I defended it for a long time, especially as a person in human resources, because for me it was, you get your foot in the door and then you can open up things. And then one of my friends said to me, so when is your foot ever far enough in the door? Because essentially I had been saying that for a number of years. I got to get in, and then I can affect change from the inside. And she said, at what point has your foot entered
the door? You're like,
enough doors? At what point is your body in? At what point do you get the shoulder in the door?
You're like, is it now?
Yeah. And she challenged me to think about that. And in her doing that, it also challenged me to process even the power I have. You work hard to build this resume or to build, you get the degrees, you get all these things to have options. And then you're in the mirror for 4 hours trying to figure out your hair for the interview. We do all the things to be able to pick where you want to go and how you want to navigate. And then we're reduced to, whether how to actually dress and which way you wear your hair and lashes or no lashes and
it goes to a performance overnight. Yeah. Literally. We're we're about to be on stage. And then a lot of us learn over time to carry that performative nature into our daily lives so that it starts to bleed outside of work. And you know what I'm
Yep.
talking about. You know, we both have friends who, you know, they might be finding their way now, but we always have ones who never find it, where they still putting on right this minute. And you're like, hey,
Yeah.
hi, I don't know if you've noticed, but we've been home in a pandemic, also known as the zombie apocalypse, for the last 11 months. You know, you could chill on that, right? Like, just the whole
You
thing.
can stop fixing your voice for the phone call.
You can
actually just talk regular.
Just regular, okay? Like, you can just talk regular. And folks don't know how to do it. And the place that showed up for me, that I had to check myself early, was in how I hired. So we're going to go there. And so when you are, hey, stretch, touch your toes, people. If you're listening right now, I need you to just go on and press pause, touch your toes, and come back, because we need to talk about what happens when you get into the position where you need to start managing people. So lots of folks get into a manager's role when they were an individual performer. Now, you know, we could have all types of conversation about nepotism and cronyism and mediocrity and so forth, but let's just for a second pretend that you were promoted because in your individual contributor role, you killed the game. And so now you're in this role where you are responsible for the work and the path to goal for a team. And all of a sudden, we're in uncharted waters. And we're bringing all of that performative stuff, the way that we've been taught, the way we're supposed to show up, the way that we have learned that is professional, also known as white normative behavior, into the workplace. And it starts to trickle into the way that we start bringing on people. So what do you see as like one of the big, like, I know you didn't do that, when it comes to being in a position of power, and I'll use that, I'll pretend it's italicized and air quotes, and needing to hire, particularly when you are a person of color, a Black or brown person?
So what I will say, let me preface this with saying that I believe that Black people are some of the most patriotic, is one of the words that came up the other day. And I believe that as a whole, we are good-natured people, in that we do not do back to the world what the world has done to us when given the opportunity. We have to be literally pushed to the edge for us to kind of clap back. As much as they try to treat us like a bunch of violent people, etc., I looked at Black America basically watch its sons and daughters be slaughtered for years, in between any time we decided to clap hard, right? And then I watched white people storm the Capitol because their president lost the election. So I look at our tolerance levels as it relates to, but what I've also realized is that embedded in that, sometimes that willingness for others to be so self-involved and self-preserving that we don't do that. So I'll watch white people have no problem hiring the whole department to be white people. I will watch Asians. I will watch Hispanic. Even Hispanics. I'll watch other ethnicities, and I've watched a number of times, and I've even done it. So let me not act like I've always been in this elevated place that I'm in today. But I've watched
today. The sun is shining.
I've watched us almost act like to hire only Black people was a horrible thing, even if they were qualified.
Yes. My friend would say, you're taking on a project. And she would go, oh, Kishshana, you know, I don't know. You're taking on a project. You know, you got to be careful, you know, because if it doesn't work out, then there's never going to be anybody else behind you or them. And it just would be, and you just have trepidation. Your stomach hurts. Your stomach is in knots. You've already given this person a narrative, right?
Yep. And you're looking, and you don't even give the person the room to be human, because now they have to be perfect in order not to tarnish. And here's the part that we don't really own. It's really personal survival in a way that's a little different, right? Yes. So if this person messes up, it's not that they just mess up for themselves, but this person now represents all Black people throughout the entire organization to the end of time. But more so, I've worked too hard to get here to let someone else mess up my reputation. And we say that in a way that I think does not own the idea that, one, we don't carry the burden for the entire Black community just because we're sitting in a role, no matter what we're made to believe. But also, working really hard to get there is really also about being able to make the path easier for somebody else.
Yes.
Not for other people to come and elevate you higher and keep shining off your pristine reputation. So at some point you should have bought enough goodwill. Like, I have a credit card, and if I pay my monthly payment on time every month, essentially if I miss a month, they don't cancel my credit card, right?
Yeah.
Like, I have enough goodwill. So I also feel like for us, we are perpetuated, right, that we never have enough goodwill. And so we don't just have to be perfection and work 5 times as hard. We push that onto other people. And it's almost like we're so adverse to somebody else making a mistake on our name that we would rather open the door for a white person than another black person because it comes with too much responsibility.
Absolutely.
And I think that part we have to get our minds away from. And to be honest, and we'll unpack some of this if the conversation lends to it. But part of why I exited the corporate space and have started doing some of the work that I do is really because I just got tired of that pressure to have to have to carry it, to watch it be done. And to be honest, even when I decided to, at one point in one organization, my entire team were Black and brown women, that I always then realized, and I couldn't turn it off, that I was pushing them to be better than perfect.
Yes.
Because then we also couldn't be the team of Black and brown women that dropped any balls.
Right, because there's no such thing as being regular degular. Like that's not it. That's not a thing where you can
mediocrity is for white men.
Correct. And preserved, And so the reality is when you are in leadership seat, and I do want to talk about, exiting. One of the things that came to mind was my dad was telling me this story. He worked in corrections here in New York City for 20 years, and that wasn't even that wasn't the first job career. That was like number 8. We Jamaican. So as he said the other day, there's a lot of jobs. We had a lot of jobs. And I remember asking him, like, why he never took the captain's test, because he was a union rep the whole time. He's well respected. He's well known. And he was like, I don't want the responsibility. But he never went into that. And when we started talking about that, it was early enough in my career that I think I didn't quite know how to ask for, like, well, why not? Well, give me the context. Because what he told me recently was like, if I failed, that was going to be a whole lot of folks who relied on me to win that wouldn't get the opportunity. And so I just figured, let me just do this job here and go home to my family and make sure my kids are good. Somebody else can worry about that part. And, I wonder if, folks might be reluctant to step into leadership positions or apprehensive about bringing others along for that very thing that you just named, which is the weight, real and imagined, but definitely real, that if there is a misstep, that it's not just a misstep of human nature, or it's not just a misstep potentially of skill or of will, but instead of competency that's tied to race. That brings in a whole other different paradigm into the situation. And so you might find yourself as a manager and as a leader in your organization making decisions, to your point, that are on 1,000 when they don't need to be. And that in of itself puts pressure on us in a way that is soul crushing.
It absolutely is. And I think, and then we perpetuate it. And I'm not blaming us for perpetuating it. Right? Because we're also trying to navigate the space.
Yes.
We also don't reach the place where we are above. It's never really above us now.
It's not.
Right? It's still within us or below us now, where it's still there. So I get it. I just wonder at times. This is my wonder. It's a wonder moment. Because I don't want this to come across as if I'm judging someone else's survival tactics, because I understand that if you are in the corporate space in this moment, it is a survival game for many people. It is a survive. It is not a thrive. It is, this is the number and I need this number. And so I'm going to deal with everything else. Exactly. But what I love to try to challenge, and what I challenge myself to consider, is what if I had been a little bit more courageous? Would it have resulted in me? I feel like this is the one thing that I do realize. I never made them show me exactly what they thought of me, because I played it very safe. And then when I no longer wanted to play it safe, I exited. But there are moments where I think about, what if knowing that exit was in my strategy, what if before I walked away, I pushed and tried to make a little bit more impact before I left?
Absolutely. And what would that have looked like? And you were talking and my eyes are closed and just kind of just taking that in. And I remember the time that I actually did decide to push. So, now it was many years ago, oh Lord, but a few years ago, I remember going to a management and leadership training specifically for managers of color. And it was like a new training of its kind by this particular well-known management training organization. We were the first cohort. They hadn't quite figured out what they were doing yet. We were, essentially guinea pigs, which, as you know, that means things went all the way left. And it was the first time that I had realized that, I had shared with you a little earlier that I was an only and proud of it, and I became undone. So much so that I couldn't even speak about the experience for weeks. I was so affected by all the ways in which I had been giving myself little paper cuts over the years. And I was like, oh my God, I am a professional career cutter. Like, this is crazy. Because to survive, I thought I was making decisions that were in my best interest, but at the detriment to how many other folks, even that I hadn't seen yet, or even just to myself. And I remember having a conversation with my then CEO and being able to finally name the ways in which I was erased from leadership conversations. And I sat on the C-suite. And so, erased from conversations, small things like the CEO would introduce every other C-suite member, would run all the information down to their darn graduate degrees, and then would turn to me and say, okay, Kishshana, go ahead, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And being able to name it and articulate it, I was like, all right, now that I've said something and I know I'm in the circle of trust, I said, come on, let's come up with a code word that if you're doing something, and I give you a little code word, our safe word that you've toe tipped into a territory that we don't need to be in. No one has to know but us, right? I'm thinking I'm doing a good thing. Like, I have created a bridge out is what you're saying.
Right.
So.
And I think, if these conversations are the hard, they bring me joy to have, no pun intended, but also they're very hard to have. And I think my mind changes just a touch every time because these conversations also make me be very self-reflective as you sit in the conversation, right? So you sit in the conversation that says, if representation matters, then me navigating this and being there in and of itself as a representation mattered.
Right.
Whether or not I was in the back moving everything and knocking the stuff down, and I was in the bull in the china shop, that somebody in that organization saw me, no matter how unimpactful I may have felt based on how I was being actually treated, they saw that there was one C-suited person that looked like them. And so maybe that did something for them, right? So that's the one side. Then the other side is, does representation without influence though really matter? And so if I'm there from a representational perspective, but I'm not actually able to make this space better for the person that says, oh, there goes the person that looks like me.
Yeah.
Then what was the value of the representations? But I battle with this. Like, these are not things that I figured out.
Yeah, no,
or
but
that I'm clear
this
about.
Is a battle. This is like the fight. Yeah. This is like going from 101 in freshman year to the grad school course of the similar topic, right? Where you have to start really looking at the nuance of the conversation. Because one of the things that popped up immediately when you said this was, how does being a person of color and listen, I say this with the specific caveat, Joy, who identifies as a person of color every single day, not just when it's convenient for your checkbox,
not just when it's
for your website. Exactly. Hey, talk about it. So now we're going to take a quick break. So use this moment to stand up, plant your feet firmly on the ground, reach for the sky, and stretch. Get that oxygen into your lungs, friend. We'll be right back. Love what you heard? Found a little nugget, but need more? Head on over to kishcamp.com. my masterclass for managers who are ready to do things differently at work and grow their skills so they can lead with confidence. Don't forget to subscribe, download, and leave a comment so we can keep the conversation going. Now, let's head back to take this offline. So how do you think being a professional of color influences your influence? Like, how have you seen that show up these days, and how is that changing? I would love to see like what your evolving thought is around that.
So here's what I'm gonna say to this, and I think so. Earlier this year, and then you know what? I may have heard somebody else say it. I don't remember that they did, but in my head, I came up with it, and I think I'm gonna leave it.
Leave it there.
If you think you said it, if you hear me say it and think you said it first, then I put that disclaimer out there. But in my head, I came up with it, and I think it's it. I remember looking at I collect artwork, and I had a piece done for a friend of mine who recently got a promotion, and so COVID slowed everything down. But I finally got the piece, and I remember this process now of thinking about how to get it framed. Like, I'm not going to just give them the canvas. I want to get it framed. And somewhere in this whole thing, I was like, you know what? I had this moment, like, the picture is the picture. Mm-hmm. Picture's done already. Like, I can do nothing with this picture, but I get to frame it.
Yes.
Right? So that has been something that I'm holding on to. All of coming out of 2020, moving into 2021, that 2020 was what it was. Mm-hmm. It was what it was. But I get to frame it. I get to frame the loss. I get to frame the stress, the transitions, the positive things, because I also had some really great wins in 2020. Mm-hmm. I get to frame the solitude that comes with living alone in a pandemic versus other things. I get to frame that. And then I get to frame 2021. And it's funny because going into 2020, I'm actually answering the question. I know it feels like the long.
No, I love it.
But
no. Well, look,
so even going into
girl.
take time to walk through it. Even going into 2020, I found a live where everybody kept saying 2020 was about perfect. 2020 is perfect vision. 2020 is perfect vision. And normally when people say stuff over and over again, I'm like, I want to look that up. Because, I tend to I have geek tendencies.
Oh, right? My God. That's why we
and
go
so when
together.
I looked it up, 2020 vision is not perfect vision. It's actually average vision. What 2020 vision says is that you see at 20 feet what everybody else sees at 20 feet. Or what the normal eye sees at 20 feet. And so for people that are like in certain roles in the military, sniper, things like that, they have to actually have, I believe it's like 2010 vision, right? And so they see at 20 feet, so they see further away what other people have to be 10 feet up to something in order to see. They have better clarity, right? Yes. But 2020 means that you see what the average eye sees. Anything less than that, you have poor vision. But 2020 vision is not perfect vision. It is average vision. And so I kept saying, I feel like this is going to be about perception. And so I was like talking about peripheral vision and like how, like I literally did a whole live. I'm going to dig it up.
Yeah, I'm like, I want to see it. No. It's awesome.
I'll share it with you.
We're going to drop that right in the show notes as soon as you find it, because I'm like,
literally,
people need all the vision.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. But it was like, I remembered that. And so when 2020 started happening, I was like, okay. And then that picture just wrapped it up. Like, you get to pick the frame, the perception, all that stuff. So what I would say is that I'm learning now that influence as I had defined it versus influence as I now define it are very different. Ooh. And I battled with it because I also didn't want to create a version or a definition of influence that was more a consolation prize because I could not be influential where I thought I should be, right? So I also didn't want to be that person that created some new thing that fit a narrative that made me feel comfortable. But what I realized is that I traded off a lot of influence in corporate because I was caring about where it was pointed more than who it was impacting. So because I didn't walk in a room and all of those folks changed all of their decisions because I was there, I discounted the two young ladies that would talk to me about my desk and have conversations, and I would really, and they would be, oh, you're so amazing. You make me feel so empowered. I neglected and I discounted that influence. I
Because
discounted the Black women along the way. Yep. The things I was doing, I discounted that because it wasn't them.
And that is, I think, back to what you and I talked about. I think, the decade we came of age in has a lot to do with our orientation and generationally to work. Like I know I'm an Xer who, when I came into the workplace, I had, baby boomer bosses, and the way of learning how to work, paying your dues, giving what you're given, heads down, doing your work, like that kind of idea, like it is foundational enough that it sticks with you. And one of the things that we don't talk about that came with it is our obsession with whiteness and expertise in whiteness, and leaning on white voices as who are the experts. So when you were talking just now, I was thinking about the fact, like, oh, that's why if I wasn't validated by fill in the blank expert out there in the world who couldn't give two hootenannies about whether I exist or don't exist, and I would, in the same breath, not ignore, but like sort of dial the volume down on the emails that I would get, or the folks who would say, I didn't leave this sector because of you. I just want you to know that I didn't turn my resignation in today, which I had written, typed, had my husband read, because of what I heard you say last night. I'm going to go back and I'm going to get an accountability partner. And my desire to get that level of approval, to get that nod, didn't go away when I left my corporate job.
Yep. I think the thing is that, and I think we have to be careful of what narrative we give, right?
Yes.
Because now that I think about, I've been also hyper emotional today. So if this gets a little, my voice crack a little, we here. What I did not do, when I think back now, how empowered. So when those young women would say positive things to me, I would say, oh, thank you. But I wonder if in any moment, if I had made them feel like, or if I had gone out of my way to make them feel like, or if I had actually felt so empowered about them that I actually felt like their compliment or what that email, like you referenced, was the validation that I needed, how empowered they would have felt. Because I think also when they're telling us we're great and we're like, yeah, but my boss. What we're essentially saying to them is that your voice doesn't, as much as we're saying we want to empower them, we're saying actually, no, your voice doesn't really matter as much as theirs does. Because you're telling me, you're affirming me. And I'm like, yeah, but it's, I have to think like, if, you and I, we best friends in our heads. So essentially, if I'm like, girl, you are slaying today, you're like, yeah, I know, but so-and-so said they ain't really like my dress. And I'm thinking, it's almost like, well, who the hell is so-and-so? And why do they get to outweigh, like,
what I said?
We in
go
this,
together.
right?
Like what's happening right now?
So I think that's the part. In our relationships, right? We wouldn't tell our significant other if they complimented us. We wouldn't tell them, right, that another person, not similarly situated, right, another non-significant other told us something different. You would know never to fix your face, but we do that. And so in those, I guess in owning our power, right? Like I think in positioning where we do have. So I'll share some things with you that if you want to share with the audience, you can. It's not really a plug. It's just things that are coming to my mind.
Tell them, just
the conversation. Yeah, the conversation around power and influence. We've assigned it to whiteness. When you look at the definition, right? When you think about like power and influence is the ability to change the actions or the courses of another person. So I'm gonna say that every Black person has influence, and you can see it all over TV, all over culture, everywhere. So we are born influential, in my opinion, right? That's just who we are. Power is the ability to give access, but we have assigned power to positionality. But guess what? If I, as the HR person, can make sure that Black girl's resume at least got seen, that was my power.
That was your power.
And we've acted like we don't have any, because we don't have it with them per se.
Yes,
and we're overlooking the people that we do have power and influence with, people that would love for us to have a conversation. Now, I'm gonna say this because I hope it builds somebody, because it built the hell out of me. I literally went to North Carolina a couple weeks ago, and I'm in North Carolina, and I'll go to find me a black-owned beauty supply store.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a couple business groups on Facebook, and I'm in this. So I go into the store, and I'm in the store looking around, and there's a person that's kind of lingering. There's a person that works there. There's another person that's there in the backdrop, and I notice her. She notices me. I keep looking around. Like, my hair is purple or pink at most times, so like people,
Yes.
I think, catch me before I recognize fully them.
Yes.
And so we're masked up in the store. And when I get my items with my friend, we talking. I get to the register to pay. The person comes behind. She's behind the table. She looks over and she goes, "Oh my God, it's Joy Pittman." Now I am freaked out. Like, man, do I owe you money? I don't know what's happening, right?
Whatever that happened. Oh
but
my goodness.
apparently, little old me is a part of a business group and so how I've been posting and showing up in the group. There's a group of those individuals that are like, we can't wait till our businesses are big enough to work with her. So she's like, "You're on my list. I got to call my friend. We were just talking about you." And in that moment, like moments like that, as insignificant as I may have been feeling in that moment, somebody stand out over me. Right?
Yes.
And there are so many moments. But now, if I had just never been randomly in North Carolina looking for a black-owned beauty supply store, right?
Yes.
I would have never known that. And I want every person, every woman, man, any person just not feeling validated or not, there's somebody standing out over you low key. That you don't even know about. And we're walking around wanting somebody else to notice us. And there's somebody that would literally gasp and catch their breath
and
to talk to or to engage or to be in our presence. And we have to own it, and seek out those levels.
Yes, and just
seek out those places.
It's so funny. Like, the reason this is bringing tears to my eyes, and it reminds me. First of all, I'm so glad that happened to you. That experience happened to you, because the ripple effect of that is just going to just have just game-changing effects. And I just think back to your point about the impact aspect, that when we talk about impact, we have trivialized what impact really means, and we have boiled it down to the mush of, these are what my sales numbers look like, and these are what my fundraising goals look like, and this is what my blah, blah, blah goals look like, as opposed to what is the behavioral change that you can't even see it that is happening. And so that is so wild. And also, to me, it reminds me of the very first time that somebody ran up to me in the airport, and I was like, what is happening here? I was so, like, I freaked out. I didn't tell anybody, Joy, like, no one. Okay. Yeah. And then a few months later, one of my best friends and I were at a conference, and she and I were speaking on a panel, and she decided to stick around for a few extra days. She was like, "I just want to see how you work. I never get to see, just you and the action and the motion." And after the first day, she was like, "Girl, you need to hire somebody full time. Secondly, do you not see how these people love you and what kind of effect you have on folks? Like, I'm gonna need you to stop playing small today." And I was like, because I didn't think I was playing small, Joe. I just want you to know I was real tired. So I did not think that I was playing small. And she was like, "I need you to cut that mess out. Like, you are doing the work and just going about minding your business." She was like, people just gravitate to that, and you have got to learn to pay attention to that and not the other stuff you were seeking. And at that time, I could even really, absorb it in a real way. It kind of just hit me on the, like, with the lotion that doesn't really go on your skin. It just hits you on the surface. It smells good. But it took some time. And so when you just said that to me right now, it brought that back to me. And I wonder how many of us have had some version of that experience. And for folks who are like, "Well, I'm not out there like that. I'm not on that." No, Joy, you just said something else. Whose resume did you look over a second time and made sure it got to the end? I remember one of the most the most pivotal career things that I decided to do around how I manage and lead people was in searches that I run. And I work alongside with a really awesome executive search firm now, and work with clients who are doing their searches for themselves in-house. And one of the things that I always do, first of all, I'm a nerd like you, so I go through every resume. I can't help myself. But secondly, let me tell you what's not going to stop me from passing somebody along: a spelling error. And if somebody, and particularly a Black woman, if I know that I can pick up the phone and go, "Hey, you're about to walk into this interview process. I just want to make sure that you are clear on what it is you're going in to say. I'm happy to have a quick coaching conversation with you before you go in. I'm not making the assumption you don't know what you're doing, but making sure that you are clear from what you saw on the website, the social media, that all that aligns to the interview process you're about to walk into. Do you want to talk about it for 10 minutes? It has not cost me a thing.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't make it in a search, I pick up the phone and I say, I am happy, leave a voice note. I pick up the phone, I say, I'm happy to have a 20-minute debrief with you about the interview process so that you can prepare for your next process. It didn't cost me nothing. Nothing. And to your point, that's the influence and the impact. That's. I mean, ooh, you just broke it down. You broke it down. You broke it down.
Yeah, this stuff is really, that's the stuff. If we get, it doesn't matter if we get to the seat if we're not mentally prepared for what it takes to be there. And I think if we talk about, one of the conversations that I had before leaving corporate, I remember sitting in $18 billion organization. I'm working as an HR business partner. I'm having a conversation with a VP who was being looked at actually for promotion under whatever diversity initiative they were doing that week. And she was a high performing, diverse, no one wanted to address the fact that if she was high performing before y'all decided to underscore diverse, why she wasn't being promoted prior to the diverse, but whatever, right? Well, another podcast.
Here we are. Right? Here we are.
So here we are today. We can't unpack everything at one time. So, and I'm talking to her, and she was talking about how unfulfilled she was and how she didn't feel listened to or heard. And I was asking her, well, where do you seek value outside of here? Yes. Felt like a real generalized question. At that time, I had started doing business coaching. I was doing talks, doing things. So I was getting a lot of validation outside of the workplace. So the workplace was just like, where my chest? Like I had really kind of separated my mind, and I was going to other places where I could pour into people because I feel like everybody says you can't pour from an empty cup, but I think that sometimes God can't give you anything to pour if you just go hold it in your cup. That's like I do believe that there's a middle to that, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're not gonna, so if you're going to, I'm not saying that you should be giving out and depleting all of that you have, but sometimes you gotta pour to know that you are to be trusted with content. Yes. That you're just not gonna hold it, right? Yes. So you gotta get into a pouring posture. So you start engaging, you start doing things. And when I asked her that, she really said nowhere. And I'm thinking, you are a Black woman, you've reached this level, you work in an area that is not heavily Black. So it's the equivalent of her working in STEM or, STEAM or whatever the equivalent is. Days, not to minimize it, but I know it changed. And that ain't my area. And, it was really one of those things where like the only place that you're looking to be validated is here. So if they don't validate you, you won't be validated. But there's so many other people that need what you have that would validate you. But that's not what you want. And so we had a conversation, we talked about a couple things. And I remember leaving that room feeling like, I don't want this to be, like, I don't want to reach levels and my whole thing be positioned towards when are they? When do I, because they are never gonna.
I wasn't told.
Right? When are they?
They didn't give me.
Yeah. So that became important to me to say, what am I doing to feed the thing that really makes me happy? Or am I waiting to make enough? Because then you're like, if I can get to 6 figures before 35, did that. If I can do this, if I can do that. You make those benchmarks and you did that. And then it's like, well, yeah. So, and so I'm at the table and they're not really listening to me. And I remember moments of being like, I felt better when I wasn't at the table.
Right, because at least you didn't know what was happening over there. So you were just minding your business, doing what you do.
And I was okay with influencing the people I was influencing. All of a sudden, I got to the table and felt like I needed all these other, that influencing just them wasn't enough. And so that was a moment. And so I remember having that moment. And so I literally, I exited. I got an opportunity to do an additional work, and I was like, I'm just gonna do that. We can stop today. We can stop this day. Hard stop. And I went through my panic attack. What I will say is, when I set my intentions and I hope this also encourages somebody. So I set my intentions that I wanted to help Black women. However this was going to happen, Black women were going to be on my radar. If somebody else fell into the hole that I was digging, they could be in there too. But I was setting my heart and my intentions around Black women. I went through a business coaching program called Walker's Legacy, and I went through it. And the most impactful moment for me was the Black women at the table hyping me about the fact that Black women needed what I wanted to do. That was just like that moment. It was only like 8 of us. It wasn't even like 8,000, but just that validation. I remember the final part of the ceremony where we pitch. We have to pitch out our business. And I remember I almost, like, I felt like I couldn't even get through it. I was crying so hard because it was the first time I had said out loud that I want to support Black women in blah, 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 blah. Like,
Yeah.
I had said women of color. I had said diverse. It was the first time that I had called out Black women.
Yeah.
And I cried the whole time trying to get it out. Everybody else was crying because I was crying. And I have been so blessed and fortunate. Literally my entire client roster is Black women running high 6 and 7 figure businesses. I literally get to serve who I want to serve. But one of the things that I realized in serving them is in helping them to see how powerful their influence is, where they are. They're running this. People are fanned out over them. And they're like, well, I'm just gonna,
No.
We can't do that. Humble and humility is a thing. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that there's a form of pride that looks like humility because we're still so concerned about what people think of us that we don't show up.
We don't show up.
And some of us are not in the corner because we're humble. We're in the corner because we're so prideful and self-involved that we won't put our own concern about how people are going to see us and worry about us to the side to serve our purpose. That to me is pride. That's not humility.
That is
right? Because it's still all about you.
Absolutely pride. And we know that cometh before what? The fall.
A fall.
And the fall don't have to be losing your job. The fall could be your health. The fall could be the relationship circle you're in. The fall could be loss of identity. The fall could be like feeling like you're in the wilderness. It just shows up. All
the fall could be not opening the door for the person that was destined to open the door for somebody in your family.
Absolutely.
We don't even know who's connected. Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
That, I mean, when I tell you that's power, that is powerful. Powerful, man. Whew, you and I could talk all day. You know that, right? Like, I literally am like, I don't want it to be over. Okay?
They don't want to listen to us all day. They want to do other things.
Oh, they would. They would, though. But they're going to have to come back for part 2. I'll be like, and now our regular guest. Listen, friend, we're going to have to do something.
Monthly visit.
And I'm happy to have it. We're going to have to do something together because the people are not ready for us in the room, though. I don't know. Maybe they will be ready.
They are.
They're ready. Well, how can folks stay connected to you? How can folks work with you? I would love to make sure that for Black female entrepreneurs and business owners who are growing multi-6-figure and 7-figure businesses, that they have an opportunity to connect with you. So, and I am among them, So
good stuff. So I am the Olivia Pope of HR. Most places in these social media streets. Working with us or working with me and or JDP Legacy, which is actually the name of my organization. Which is the timing of this is actually perfect, is that we normally do full service strategy and HR services. So it's really our focus is helping Black female entrepreneurs scale their businesses. But with this, our focus is on doing it through hiring, because just all the research and the experience has said that our access to VC capital is limited in a number of ways. One, we're Black women and most venture capitalists don't look like us. Mm-hmm. 2, many of our businesses are considered low barrier to entry businesses.
Yes.
So consulting, many service-based businesses, hair care, beauty, all those things are considered low barrier to entry. So our businesses are not looked at favorably for VC money. And so I started looking at the fact that so many people are spending so many hours trying to chase grants and chase funding when you could actually just be doing the work, bringing on people to help you do more of the work and scaling that way. And so we've literally scaled our business through that hiring method. So I'm not only the client, I'm the player president, right?
Yeah.
I eat off the plate that I serve. And so we have those higher-end clients who we are working with, either providing them strategy consultation, actually helping them shore up their current HR function. So they may have somebody working in the HR space, but they don't have a team behind them. So we come in almost like outsourced bandwidth, right, to help them really deliver on higher level outcomes, et cetera. Or we take over HR for you and navigate it within your business. Our focus, though, is helping you build your team, helping the Black female CEOs build their leadership capacity and EQ, and also helping them create a culture in their business that makes retaining people easy. Yes. And we do that really by allowing ourselves to understand how that CEO leads and helping them build an organizational structure that allows them to sit in their areas of genius and expertise, right? So we're not trying to morph you into a different type of leader.
Exactly.
Yep. We're understanding who you are and helping you build an organization that makes sense for you. We also are launching this, so I'm not sure when this will air, but we're launching on February 15th a membership program called HR for the Culture, TM, so do not use it. Do not steal my stuff out here in these streets.
Okay, you got to say that.
But it's called HR for the Culture. And it is literally a monthly membership. We do live Q&A. We have an HR help desk that is 24 hours, but do not send emergencies, like we need time to respond. We have a 24-hour help desk, live Q&A. They have access to pick my HR brain calls, group Q&A sessions, things of that nature. And that actually will be launching on February 15th. For the 15th, from now until actually the end of February, the introductory price is $297 a month. And if you come in at that level, you stay there. And then after that, it goes to $497 a month. But the value is amazing. Templates, yeah, all that stuff. So we wanted to create something for individuals who are saying, I'm not ready yet for a 4-figure a month retainer, right? But I need to know, is my contractor a contractor? I need to know this stuff. I need access to somebody with that expertise level. And so we created the membership. And so you can go to hrfortheculture.com and sign up. That price will go up at the end of February, but we are taking individuals if they want to pre-get in. So we're opening it up that way. And I'm excited to serve the community. I'm also like, I answer inboxes, right? I answer DMs. So,
yes,
you know,
like
you
me.
can also
that's why I was like, we go
me.
together. Because I'm like, I answer my DMs.
So,
I'm like, my ops manager's always like, if you don't stop doing business, she has an actual reminder on my calendar every day that says, please send Tiffany all of the DM chats and business you've done today. Thank you.
So I actually like people, and so that'll be my flaw for a little while. But hrfortheculture.com, or you can go to bit.ly work with JVP if you are in that space in your business where you're ready for outsourced services. I mean, you're just in a different space. But we wanted to meet people at multiple levels and not just say, you know, follow us on Instagram until you can afford us. We wanted to create something.
You want to make sure
that met people where they were.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it so much. Y'all, please make sure you are following this amazing human and her team and work. Make sure you sign up for HR for the Culture, particularly because I have a bunch of folks who I know are listening who work in organizations and companies, but they are starting their thing on the side. Listen, y'all, get some foundations to you so that you start building things right. So you don't end up like how I did, where you had to go on and let everybody go and start again. So do it right the first time. And listen, you and I are going to have to keep talking on different things. I pulled out like 97 thoughts I had. My whole paper is full right now. But, I got to go back to this. This is another one you and I can talk about. And about this. And so many quotables. So thank you so much for hanging out with me today and for just dropping so many gems. Absolutely. And we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Great.
On our next episode, we'll be talking about the big I word, being an influencer, and what that really means. And you don't want to miss it. So you know what to do. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll be talking to you real soon.
let's get to work,
Let's
darling.
get to work, darling. I'm like, oh gosh, is it too late in the day for us to have a beverage? Saturday.
I mean, I can do a rum and coke if we need to be beveraging, but
listen,
want to keep it.
Listen, rum and coke is your choice. You know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm mostly a Knob Creek neat, and if I'm feeling real fancy, I might drop a little ginger beer in there.
Oh, okay.
And you ever meet people, particularly I've run into guys sometimes, and they'd be like, "Oh, what?" Well, this is before the zombie apocalypse, and they'd be like, "Well, what do you drink?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I could just have fill in the blank, whatever whiskey is there, neat."
Right.
And they'd be like, "Oh, you drink that type of brown? Oh, okay. I'm really not gonna mess with you too tough." And for a long time I was like, "Well, what does that mean?" It's just what I like. Evidently, it comes with a thing.
What they basically said is that you ain't drinking baby girl drinks. Hey. Well, I'm like a old fashioned, so I'd probably drink quote unquote man drinks as well. I think that's what that's about. Like more masculine.
Because we don't want the light and fruity.
Yeah, that's basically what it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is.
Well, listen.
That's essentially what it is.
Essentially what it is. Well,
essentially what it is.
If it can have an umbrella in it, I don't want it.
Right.